this morning, late yesterday actually, that Mike McCarthy of the Steelers hired his old offensive line coach, James Campen, who Aaron Rodgers loves, to go with him to Pittsburgh. They're trying to transform this offense. And I think a lot of Mike McCarthy's problem, like Android, is the marketing and branding. I mean, you hear people say, Pete Carroll, he'll get Hall of Fame votes. Well, Mike McCarthy has the same playoff record as Pete Carroll and a better regular season record. And McCarthy's only been canned once. Pete's adding them up. I mean, Mike McCarthy 12 times has had a top 10 scoring offense. Pete Carroll doesn't have that. So he is a good coach. There's no question. And he wins a lot of games and his team score a lot of points. So I think hearing this news, I said this, it feels a little uninspiring. He's older. He's a Pittsburgh guy, but I think he's a good coach. And Pittsburgh did just go 10-7 with an organization and a head coach that felt kind of the last 6-7 years tone deaf to offense. And remember this, Mike McCarthy, when he joined Green Bay, you remember Brett Favre was like 36 years old, led the league in interceptions. Packers were bad. They hired Mike McCarthy. What happened? Favre was back to being a Pro Bowler, and I think he made the NFC Championship. So it's like Mike McCarthy makes quarterbacks better. In fact, Ian O'Connor, who wrote a book, a great book on Aaron Rodgers, Out of the Darkness, must read. The first couple chapters are his family's history. Aaron's family's history is amazing. He says when he did all this homework for the book, he says, Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy, don't believe it. It'll work.
Their relationship is better now than it ever was when they were together in Green Bay. And Rodgers said to me, listen, we did butt heads, but at the end of the day, we lit it up for a lot of years. And what people forget is Mike McCarthy changed Aaron Rodgers' entire style of play. When he got him out of Cal, he was very robotic. He had the ball back at his ear hole, and McCarthy loosened him up and made him a more athletic player and really helped develop him into an all-time great, and never gets any credit for that. So what is the ceiling for this partnership? Probably 11-6 at best, winning a playoff game.
Okay, they were 10-7 last year, and they weren't great offensively, but they won the division, and they'll be better offensively. It's just certain. The android, Mike McCarthy. I always said Steven Soderbergh is a director in Hollywood. I love all his films. The Limey, Ocean's 11, Aaron Brockovich, Sex, Lies, and Videotape. Traffic is one of my 10, 15 favorite movies of all time. He doesn't get mentioned a lot.
All right. Colin launched a blistering critique against the Pittsburgh Steelers for their decision to appoint Mike McCarthy as head coach, characterizing the move with the dismissive phrase, "Same old Pittsburgh, same old Pittsburgh." He engaged in tangential metaphors about truffle fries and other abstract comparisons. Simultaneously, he extended effusive praise to the New York Knicks, yes, the basketball team, and by extension, the New York Giants for their acquisition of Jim Harbaugh. He framed the Giants' decision as a monumental success, the franchise's most astute move in decades. Now, the discourse is shifting to suggest this might actually be a shrewd appointment for the Steelers. Honestly, I find the entire contrast rather amusing. It's genuinely comical. Before I delve deeper into this analysis, a crucial reminder. Please ensure you subscribe and watch this video in its entirety. Subscribing while viewing the full content is, without any question, the most impactful way to foster the growth of this platform, enabling me to continue producing the highest quality Pittsburgh Steelers-focused material available. Now, regarding Mike McCarthy. The surrounding discourse is truly fascinating when you pause to consider it. Reflect on Bill Belichick. I acknowledge the complexities surrounding Belichick's legacy, and we needn't become entangled in those details here, but a notable pattern emerges. Belichick, fundamentally a defensive strategist, has historically received disproportionate credit for his role in cultivating Tom Brady's career. I am not referencing his provision of championship-caliber defenses here. That is a separate discussion. I am specifically alluding to the pervasive narrative crediting him with Brady's actual development as a quarterback, his refinement into a historically great player, despite Belichick's primary expertise lying on the opposite side of the ball. Certainly, he influenced Brady. Their weekly strategic meetings are well documented, a topic I've frequently addressed. Yet, The general football conversation has consistently amplified Belichick's developmental role. Conversely, Mike McCarthy, an offensive-minded coach by trade, has never received remotely comparable recognition for his part in Aaron Rodgers' ascension. It is scarcely a topic of discussion. You never encounter the sentiment, "We have a promising young quarterback. Let's bring in Mike McCarthy to mentor him." That proposition simply does not exist within the league's conversational landscape. It is an observation I find remarkably intriguing. It genuinely piques my analytical curiosity. This contextual backdrop informed my earlier perspective. Prior to the coaching carousel settling, when it was unclear if Ben Johnson would be attainable for a team like the Chicago Bears, the hiring landscape was entirely fluid. I was skeptical Johnson would land in Chicago, which led me to posit that Mike McCarthy would represent an excellent selection for the Bears. I am not asserting he would definitively unlock Caleb Williams' ultimate ceiling, but he would unequivocally provide elevation and, critically, stabilization. He possesses the capacity to mold a quarterback into a genuinely proficient, if not elite, performer, a significant improvement over current outputs. This developmental capability holds immense value. Its importance cannot be overstated. Moreover, Mike McCarthy demonstrated considerable self-assurance and clarity regarding his professional standing. He does not project as a coach dominated by outsized ego. In fact, he appears to operate with a comparatively modest one. His departure from Dallas was telling. He refused to remain in a constraining situation where his needs weren't met by ownership, opting to step away rather than desperately pursue any available vacancy. He exercised patience and has now been rewarded with the head coaching position for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That is an exceptional opportunity. It ranks among the most prestigious roles in the entire National Football League. Consequently, I am profoundly interested in observing the long-term implications of this hire for the Steelers' trajectory. Pundits like Colin assert the move lacks imagination, while conceding it might prove effective. Yet they label the Giants' hiring of Harbaugh as imaginative. The distinction is puzzling. Imagination is a luxury predicated on availability. If there existed a plentiful market of proven, young offensive masterminds like Ben Johnson, Sean McVay, or Matt LaFleur, coaches where you possess high-confidence certainty in their transformative potential, then swinging for the fences is an obvious strategy. Such a market does not perpetually exist, and it was particularly sparse this cycle. The closest analog to that archetype this offseason, particularly on the offensive side, was perhaps Clint Kubiak. Several intriguing defensive candidates also emerged. However, the Steelers, an organization with a storied history, seemingly sought a divergent path from recent experiments. Furthermore, the Las Vegas Raiders appeared to hold the inside track for a candidate like Kubiak. Given that context, one could rationally conclude this represented the optimal avenue for securing an offensive innovator. Alternatives like pursuing Mike McDaniel or re-engaging with a coach like Cliff Kingsbury carried their own significant risks and uncertainties. From my vantage point, the McCarthy hiring feels like the more prudent and potentially superior decision. As previously stated, McCarthy, at a bare minimum, functions as an ideal bridging head coach. He can provide immediate stability to the franchise, institute a coherent and professional offensive culture, and establish a competitive baseline. Should the team subsequently fall short with a quarterback and roster in place, the organization is then perfectly positioned to pursue the next hot coordinator, perhaps the Eagles' offensive coordinator or another rising star. At that juncture, you could transition from McCarthy to that new offensive mind, with your quarterback entering his prime at ages 24 or 25. With McCarthy, you secure a guaranteed, respectable floor. This dynamic differs from the stability offered by Mike Tomlin, which I acknowledge was significant. Tomlin's strength was rooted in defensive culture and overall team leadership. However, if you cannot resolve the quarterback and offensive equation, your team's potential is perpetually capped. You will always confront a fundamental limitation. An offensive architect like McCarthy does not necessarily face the same constriction. If you possess a leader who understands how to orchestrate an offense and develop a passer, it grants the franchise tremendous strategic leverage. You can confidently draft a new quarterback, navigate the free agent market for a cost-effective veteran, or take a calculated risk on a reclamation project, knowing you have the coaching infrastructure to elevate offensive performance. If the defense subsequently underperforms, you are often one key acquisition, one coordinator change, or one impactful free agent signing away from rectifying that deficiency. Defensive solutions can frequently be found. Conversely, if the offense remains broken, importing star talent like Aaron Jones or DK Metcalf might prove insufficient. Defensive voids, however, can sometimes be filled more directly. Additionally, it is arguably more feasible to identify and hire an elite defensive coordinator than it is to secure a transformative offensive play caller. Therefore, solidifying the offensive foundation first places the franchise in a more powerful and flexible long-term position. I fully comprehend why this hire isn't greeted with unbridled excitement or seen as a grand, visionary stroke. It is not the acquisition of a McVay or a Johnson. I grasp that sentiment. I intend to explore a similar theme regarding the Philadelphia Eagles' choice for offensive coordinator, recording these thoughts before consuming the prevailing media reactions from shows like First Things First or the Colin Cowherd podcast. My assumption is the response will be tepid. Having contemplated this development since the late-breaking news emerged, a pattern is clear. Public and media fascination is disproportionately fixated on big names. The reality is these coveted low-hanging fruit candidates, the Vrabels, the Ben Johnsons, the splashy college hires, are not perpetually available. For the Steelers, given how this specific hiring cycle unfolded, such options were not realistically accessible. Absent a definitive slam-dunk candidate of that ilk, I firmly believe Mike McCarthy represents one of the most advantageous hires the Steelers could have executed. In fact, I would select Mike McCarthy over Jim Harbaugh without a moment's hesitation. The decision would be instantaneous and unequivocal. This preference may stem from my offensive and quarterback-centric philosophy, but the choice is glaringly clear. Presented with those two options, McCarthy is the selection, and the gap is not narrow. Those are my thoroughly considered perspectives on the matter. I am genuinely eager to receive your feedback and interpretations. What is your collective assessment of Mike McCarthy? Is public sentiment gradually warming to his potential impact with the Pittsburgh Steelers? Please share your viewpoints in the commentary section below. I make a dedicated commitment to read every single comment submitted. Whether your opinion aligns with mine or stands in direct contradiction, I welcome the engagement. Let's delve into detailed discussions and spirited debates, but ultimately, let's ensure the exchange remains enjoyable. Please consider subscribing to this channel. We are in the process of cultivating a fantastic community here, and I would be absolutely delighted to welcome you as a participant. The ambition is to forge a digital space where we collectively feel a sense of connection and shared enthusiasm, and I believe we are making significant strides toward that objective. Also, please remember to like this video, as such engagement substantively assists with content visibility and algorithmic promotion. Thank you sincerely for your time and attention. I look forward to our next interaction.